The stars looked different when you knew war was coming. Ambassador Rachel Adams pressed her palm against the cool viewport of the diplomatic shuttle as it docked with Crossroads Station. Behind her, the massive bulk of the UES Harmony drifted. In the darkness, its white hull gleaming under the station's lights. The ship carried no weapons of war, only hope. "They're already here," said Captain David Torres, moving to stand beside her. Through the transparent aluminum, they could see the dark wedge shapes of hegemony warships arranged in perfect formation around the station. Each vessel bristled with cannon ports and missile tubes, their hulls scarred from countless battles across the galaxy. Rachel nodded slowly. The hegemony had controlled this sector of space for over 200 years, their 12-species alliance built on conquest and submission. Every world they encountered faced the same choice: join willingly or be crushed. Until now they had never met humans. The shuttle bay doors hissed open, revealing a scene that would have terrified most species in the galaxy. 30 hegemony soldiers lined the walls, their various alien forms united only in their predatory stances. Saurians stood 7 feet tall with razor teeth gleaming, their reptilian eyes cold and calculating. Insectoid Mentari clicked their mandibles rhythmically, a sound that meant aggression in their culture. The massive Brutari simply loomed there. 4 arms crossed over barrel chests that could crush a human without effort. Rachel stepped forward first, her diplomatic robes flowing behind her. She had studied every species in the hegemony for 10 years, learning their customs, their languages, their fears. David followed, his naval uniform pristine but deliberately lacking any weapons or armor. The message was clear. Humans came in. "Peace. I am War Commander Threx of the Saurian Dominion," hissed the largest reptilian, his scaled hide bearing the scars of a dozen campaigns. "You are the softskins who dare to claim space that belongs to the hegemony." "I am Ambassador Adams of the United Earth Government," Rachel replied in perfect Saurian, her throat adapting to the complex hisses and growls. "We come to discuss peaceful coexistence between our peoples." Threx's laugh was like breaking glass. "Peaceful, yes, we have heard this word from many species. They all learned peace in the end." His clawed hand gestured toward the viewing ports where the bones of dead worlds could still be seen drifting in space. The conference room aboard Crossroads Station was designed to intimidate. The hegemony delegates sat on raised platforms, looking down at the human contingent like judges at a trial. Holographic displays showed the might of their fleets, the resources of conquered worlds, the skulls of species that had chosen resistance over submission. Rachel opened her briefcase and withdrew a data crystal that gleamed like a captured star. "This contains our formal proposal for peace between humanity and the hegemony. We offer technological exchange, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Our scientists have developed medical advances that could benefit all species, agricultural techniques that could feed billions, and energy systems that could power entire civilizations." War Commander Threx barely glanced at the crystal before gesturing to a subordinate. "Speak your terms quickly, Softskin. We have worlds to conquer. We propose a buffer zone between our territories, clearly marked boundaries that both sides will respect. Joint exploration missions to discover new worlds that we can develop together rather than fight over. Cultural exchanges to help our species understand each other better." Rachel's voice remained calm despite the dismissive snarls from several delegates. "Understanding," repeated a Mentari delegate, its compound eyes reflecting light like broken jewels. "We understand you perfectly. Humans, you are weak. You send 1 ship where we would send 100. You offer gifts where we would demand tribute. You speak of friendship where we see only prey." Captain Torres stepped forward. "Our ship carries detailed scans of human space showing our colonies and populations. We share this information freely as a gesture of trust." He activated a holographic projector that displayed Earth's solar system, then expanded to show the growing network of human worlds. The silence that followed was telling. The hegemony delegates leaned forward, studying the display with new interest. 37 human colonies spread across a region of space that should have taken centuries to settle. Industrial worlds, agricultural planets, research stations, and massive space habitats that house billions of people. How? Hissed Threx, his earlier dismissive attitude replaced by calculating interest. How do soft skins spread so quickly across the stars? We work together, Rachel answered simply. Every human colony contributes to the whole. We share resources, knowledge, and labor. When one world needs help, others provide it willingly. A Brutari delegate spoke for the first time, its voice like grinding stone. Cooperation is weakness. The strong take what they need. The weak serve or die. We have found cooperation to be strength, David replied. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, but a web grows stronger with every connection. The negotiations continued for hours. The humans offered concession after concession, willing to give up strategic advantages for the sake of peace. They proposed early warning systems to prevent misunderstandings, joint research projects to benefit both civilizations, even cultural, festivals where different species could meet in safety. With each offer, the hegemony delegates grew more contemptuous. They saw humanity's willingness to negotiate as proof of weakness, their generous proposals as desperate attempts to buy safety. War Commander Threx openly mocked the humans' desire for peace, comparing them to the herbivorous species that grazed peacefully until predators came to feed. You offer us trinkets and promises, Threx finally declared, rising to his full height. But you have nothing we cannot simply take. Your colonies are far from Earth, vulnerable and alone. Your people are soft and untested. Your ships carry no weapons of war. We choose not to carry weapons because we hope they will not be needed, Rachel said quietly. But we are not defenseless if pushed beyond reason. The Saurian war commander's laughter filled the chamber. Show us these defenses, soft skin. Show us why the hegemony should fear a species that comes begging for peace. Rachel met his gaze steadily. I hope that will never be necessary, War Commander. For your sake as much as ours. As the first day of negotiations ended, the human delegation returned to their shuttle in silence. The hegemony representatives had made their position clear. They saw humans as another weak species ripe for conquest, their peaceful overtures as signs of cowardice rather than wisdom. But Rachel Adams carried more than just diplomatic credentials. Hidden in her briefcase beneath the peace treaties and trade agreements lay a single red data chip that no hegemony scanner had detected. On it was recorded every weapon signature, every tactical formation, and every weakness of the alien fleet. Surrounding Crossroads Station, humanity had learned long ago that hoping for peace meant preparing for war. They had come to negotiate because it was right, but they had not come unprepared. The question now was whether the hegemony would choose wisdom or force the galaxy to learn why humans preferred to keep their true nature hidden. The alarm bells of the orbital station above New Eden rang with urgent purpose through the pre-dawn darkness. Director Sam Walsh rolled out of his bunk and stumbled to the control center, still pulling on his uniform jacket. The display screens showed what every human colonist had feared might come. Unknown ships moving through their system, their energy signatures matching hegemony technology. How many contacts? Sam asked his communications officer, trying to keep the worry from his voice. 7 vessels, sir. They appeared at the edge of the system about 2 hours ago and have been conducting detailed scans of our defense platforms, our agricultural centers, and our population hubs. Through the reinforced windows of the station, Sam could see the peaceful world of New Eden spread below. Rolling green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with farming communities and processing centers. The planet fed 12 other human colonies and had never seen conflict. Its defensive systems consisted of basic early warning sensors and a handful of patrol craft used mainly for search and rescue operations. Are they responding to communications? Sam asked, though he already suspected the answer. Negative, sir. We've tried all standard diplomatic channels, including the protocols established during the Crossroads negotiations. They're ignoring U.S. completely. The lead hegemony ship was a sleek Predator-class vessel, its hull marked with the scars of previous conquests. Through his telescope, Sam could see smaller craft detaching from its belly like insects from a hive, racing toward New Eden's surface with obvious hostile intent on the planet below. Farmer Tom Bradley was checking his livestock when the strange craft appeared overhead. The animals sensed danger first, their nervous bleating and stamping alerting him to look up. The alien ship hung motionless above his fields, scanning beams playing across his crops and equipment like searching fingers. Tom activated his emergency communicator, broadcasting on the colony-wide channel. "This is Bradley Farm reporting unknown. Aircraft conducting unauthorized surveys. The beams appear to be mapping our agricultural equipment and storage facilities." Similar reports flooded in from across New Eden. The hegemony ships were cataloging everything: population centers, industrial facilities, resource deposits, and transportation networks. They were creating a complete intelligence picture of human colonial operations with methodical precision. Admiral Beth Harrison received the reports at Colonial Defense Headquarters 3 days later. Her staff had compiled incident reports from 17 different human colonies, all describing the same pattern of behavior. Hegemony ships would appear at the edge of a system, conduct detailed surveillance, then vanish before any response could be organized. "They're probing our defenses systematically," reported her intelligence chief, Colonel Maria Santos. "Every incursion gathers more data about our capabilities, our population distribution, and our resource infrastructure. This isn't random exploration." Beth studied the holographic display showing the pattern of incursions. The hegemony was being careful, never staying long enough to justify a military response. Never actually attacking anything, but clearly gathering intelligence for future operations. It was a textbook preparation for invasion. "What's our diplomatic team's response?" she asked. "Ambassador Adams has filed formal protests with War Commander Threx every single time. The hegemony claims these are navigation errors, unauthorized actions by individual ship commanders, or simple misunderstandings about territorial boundaries." Beth's laugh was bitter. "Navigation errors that just happen to scan our most strategic locations. Misunderstandings that never occur in empty space, only around our colonies." The pattern continued for weeks. Human colonies reported hegemony ships appearing with increasing frequency, their scans growing more detailed and intrusive. The aliens tested response times, cataloged defensive systems, and mapped supply routes between worlds. Each time they vanished before human patrol ships could arrive, leaving behind only sensor recordings and growing anxiety. The first act of sabotage occurred on the mining World of Prosperity Station. Chief Engineer Lisa Park was conducting routine maintenance on the primary or processor when the system experienced a catastrophic failure. The massive machine that refined rare metals for shipment throughout human space simply shut down, its control systems fried by an energy surge that seemed to come from nowhere. "The damage is very specific," Lisa reported to the station commander. "Someone knew exactly which circuits to target for maximum disruption with minimum obvious evidence. This wasn't an accident or normal system failure." Investigation teams found the source within hours, a small device attached to the main power coupling, designed to overload specific systems while appearing to be a random component failure. The device's construction was unmistakably hegemony technology, bearing the distinctive energy signature of their military-grade equipment. More sabotage incidents followed. Atmospheric processors on terraforming worlds mysteriously malfunctioned. Communication relays experienced targeted failures that isolated colonies from each other. Water purification systems developed problems that seemed random, but created maximum inconvenience for human populations. Each incident was carefully designed to cause disruption without obvious evidence of alien involvement. The hegemony was conducting a campaign of harassment and intelligence gathering while maintaining plausible deniability for their actions. Ambassador Adams presented evidence of the sabotage campaign during the next negotiation session at Crossroads Station. The data was comprehensive and damning, showing clear patterns of hegemony involvement in attacks on civilian targets. Across human space, War Commander Threx examined the evidence with obvious amusement. "You claim that our ships are responsible for these unfortunate accidents? Perhaps your human technology is simply inferior to the standards required for space colonization. We would be happy to provide more reliable equipment in exchange for appropriate compensation. The devices were manufactured using hegemony technology, Rachel stated firmly. Their energy signatures match your military specifications exactly. Many species use similar technology, replied a Mentari delegate. Its mandibles clicking in what humans had learned was their equivalent of dismissive laughter. Perhaps you should improve your security rather than making accusations against peaceful neighbors. The negotiations had become a farce. The hegemony continued their campaign of harassment and intelligence gathering while denying any involvement. They demanded access to human military installations as proof of peaceful intentions while conducting obvious preparations for war. Captain Torres watched the proceedings with growing frustration. Every human attempt at reasonable compromise was met with escalating demands for submission. Every offer of mutual cooperation was dismissed as weakness. Every piece of evidence was explained away with contemptuous arrogance. The breaking point came during the fourth month of negotiations. The research vessel UES Discovery was conducting deep space surveys near the boundary between human and hegemony territory when three alien patrol ships approached without warning. Dr. Robert Kim was reviewing sensor data when the first energy blast struck his ship's hull. The Discovery carried no weapons, only scientific equipment and a crew of 12 researchers studying cosmic background radiation patterns. The hegemony ships opened fire without communication or warning, their weapons targeting the ship's engines. And life support systems? Mayday, transmitted the Discovery's communications officer as hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. We are a scientific vessel under attack by hegemony forces. We have no weapons and pose no threat. Requesting immediate assistance. The attack continued for 7 minutes. When human patrol ships finally arrived, they found the Discovery drifting. Powerless in space, its hull breached in multiple locations. 3 crew members were dead, including Dr. Kim, who had been working in the laboratory when explosive decompression killed him instantly. War Commander Threx's response to the incident was delivered with casual indifference. An unfortunate accident caused by a targeting system malfunction. Our ships believed they were engaging a military reconnaissance vessel conducting intelligence operations in hegemony space. We offer appropriate compensation for the misunderstanding. The compensation offered was insulting. Enough money to replace the destroyed equipment, but nothing for the dead crew members. Nothing for the terror inflicted on survivors. Nothing that acknowledged the deliberate nature of the attack. Ambassador Adams felt something cold settle in her chest as she reviewed the incident reports. The hegemony had crossed a line, moving from harassment and sabotage to direct violence against human civilians. They were testing humanity's resolve, pushing to see how much abuse humans would accept in the name of peace. That night, she sent an encrypted message to Earth that consisted of only 3 words: patience wearing thin. President Santos read the message in her private office, then walked to the window overlooking the lights of New Geneva. Somewhere among those lights were the families of the 3 researchers killed by hegemony arrogance. Somewhere in the darkness, military commanders were updating contingency plans that had been kept secret for decades. Humanity had chosen peace because they remembered the cost of war, but they had not forgotten how to fight when fighting became the only option. The question was whether the hegemony would recognize the warning signs before they pushed humanity beyond the point of no return. The emergency session of the Colonial Council met in the deepest chambers beneath New Geneva, behind walls designed to survive planetary bombardment. President Santos stood before representatives from every human world, her face grave as she addressed the assembled delegates. Outside, protest demonstrations filled the streets, demanding action against hegemony aggression. The attack on the Discovery was not an accident, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Our intelligence services have confirmed that the hegemony patrol ships deliberately targeted a civilian research vessel, killing 3 innocent scientists whose only crime was studying stars. Angry murmurs swept through the assembly. The delegate from New Eden rose first, his farming world's peaceful nature making his words carry extra weight. Madam President, my people are afraid. Hegemony ships appear in our system regularly now, scanning our children's schools and medical centers. How long must we endure this intimidation? Similar reports came from across human space. The hegemony campaign of harassment had escalated beyond sabotage and surveillance. Civilian ships were being intercepted and searched. Human colonists were being questioned and threatened. Trade routes were being disrupted by hegemony patrols that appeared wherever human commerce tried to flourish. We have prepared one final comprehensive peace proposal. President Santos announced, activating a holographic display that showed the document's key points. Ambassador Adams will present it at Crossroads Station tomorrow. If the hegemony accepts these terms, we can still avoid the catastrophe that seems to be approaching. The proposal was humanity's most generous offer yet. Humans would accept hegemony oversight of their military forces. They would pay tribute in the form of technological knowledge and resources. They would even accept limited hegemony colonies within human territory as a gesture of good faith. Delegate Harrison from the industrial world of Iron Gate stood up, her face flushed with anger. Madam President, we're talking about surrender. You're asking us to give up our independence to alien conquerors who have shown nothing but contempt for human life. I'm asking you to give us one last chance to preserve peace, Santos replied firmly. Humanity learned the cost of war during our darkest hours on Earth. The Third Global War nearly destroyed our entire species. We cannot forget those lessons. Now, the vote was close, but the peace proposal passed by the narrowest margin in Colonial Council history. Ambassador Adams received her final instructions along with something else. A sealed envelope marked Protocol 7 authorization that she was ordered to open only if the hegemony rejected humanity's ultimate offer. At Crossroads Station, War Commander Threx had grown visibly more confident over the months of negotiation. His ships now openly patrolled the buffer zone, challenging any human vessel that attempted to cross. His demands had escalated from tribute to outright submission, and he seemed genuinely amused by humanity's continued attempts at diplomacy. Another proposal? He hissed as Ambassador Adams entered the conference chamber. How many ways can soft skins beg for mercy? Rachel placed the data crystal containing humanity's final offer on the table between them. Her hands were steady despite the magnitude of what she was presenting. This proposal represents humanity's willingness to make any sacrifice necessary to preserve peace between our civilizations. The terms were laid out in excruciating detail. Humans would accept hegemony military oversight of all colonial defenses. They would provide detailed intelligence about their technology and resources. They would allow hegemony bases to be established on human worlds as guarantee of compliance. In exchange, the hegemony would end their campaign of harassment and violence. War Commander Threx read the proposal with growing satisfaction. His reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. The other hegemony delegates leaned forward eagerly, scenting the complete victory that seemed within their grasp. Interesting, Threx said finally, his clawed fingers drumming against the crystal's surface. You offer everything except the one thing we truly require, which is? Rachel asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Complete surrender, the Mentari delegate chittered. You offer to be clients, but we require subjects. You offer cooperation, but we demand submission. You still speak as equals when you should grovel as servants. Threx stood to his full imposing height, his battle scars catching the chamber's harsh lighting. The hegemony has decided that humanity is unworthy of client species status. You are too weak to be useful allies, too proud to be proper servants, and too scattered to be efficient slaves. The war commander picked up the data crystal containing humanity's peace proposal and crushed it in his clawed fist, the fragments scattering across the conference table like dying stars. We offer you one final choice, soft skins. Submit completely to hegemony rule, accept the dissolution of your government and the occupation of all human worlds, or face the consequences of defying a superior civilization. The silence that followed was profound. Ambassador Adams looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of 12 species, all of whom had conquered and consumed countless civilizations across the galaxy. She thought of the families on New Eden, the researchers who had died aboard the Discovery, the children growing up in fear because alien predators circled their worlds like hungry wolves. "I need to consult with my government," she said quietly. "You have 72 hours, Threx declared. After that, hegemony fleets will begin the pacification of human space. Your colonies will be occupied, your leaders removed, and your people integrated into the hegemony's labor force. This is the fate of all species who mistake our patience for weakness." As the human delegation prepared to leave Crossroads Station, Threx made one final gesture of contempt. "You will remain here as guarantees of your government's compliance. If Earth chooses resistance, you will be the first to pay the price for their foolishness." Hegemony soldiers surrounded the human party, their weapons drawn and ready. "Captain." Torres tensed, calculating odds and escape routes, but Ambassador Adams placed a restraining hand on his arm. "It's all right, David, they're just afraid." "Afraid?" Threx laughed, the sound echoing off the chamber walls. What could the mighty hegemony possibly fear from weakling humans? Rachel opened the sealed envelope President Santos had given her, reading the contents with growing understanding. When she looked up, her expression had changed completely. The diplomatic patience was still there, but underneath it something else had awakened. "You fear that we might be something other than what we appear," she said softly. "You fear that our peaceful approach might be choice rather than necessity. You fear that our restraint might be wisdom rather than weakness. We fear nothing from a species that sends one ship where we would send 100, Threx snarled. "Then you understand us even less than I thought," Rachel replied. She activated her personal communicator, sending a brief coded message toward human space. The message was simple but carried implications that would change the galaxy forever. "Protocol 7 is authorized. May God forgive us all." The signal raced through space at faster-than-light speeds, reaching Earth within hours. President Santos received the confirmation in her private office, along with reports that hegemony fleets were already moving toward human space. The alien armada was massive. Over 3,000 warships divided into assault groups targeting every human colony simultaneously. Santos walked to her safe and withdrew a device that had not been activated for over 50 years. The key turned smoothly despite decades of disuse, and screens throughout Earth's military command centers flickered to life as dormant systems awakened from their long sleep. "This is President Santos authorizing Protocol 7, she announced to the emergency command staff. "Humanity tried to choose peace, others have chosen war for us. Signal all commands. The mask comes off now." Across human space, installations that had masqueraded as civilian facilities for decades began their transformation. Agricultural processing centers revealed weapon systems that could crack moons. Research stations deployed sensor arrays that could track individual ships across light years. Mining platforms reconfigured themselves as fortress complexes that made hegemony strongholds look like children's toys. The merchant vessel UES Harmony, which had carried Ambassador Adams to her first meeting with the hegemony, shed its diplomatic disguise to reveal the command dreadnought it had always been. Captain Torres had known the truth from the beginning. Humanity's peaceful first contact mission had been real, but the ship carrying it was anything but defenseless on New Eden. Farmer Tom Bradley received an automated message that made him smile grimly as he looked up at the hegemony ships still circling his world. "Attention all civilians, please remain indoors for the next 72 hours while pest control operations are conducted in your area." The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had chosen peace and what happened when that choice was taken away from them. War Commander Threx had demanded to see human strength, and he was about to get his wish in ways that would haunt his nightmares. For the rest of his life, the first sign that something had changed came from the hegemony listening posts scattered throughout the galaxy. Communications officers across a dozen species suddenly found their instruments, detecting signals that had never existed before, powerful transmissions radiating from every human system simultaneously, using encryption methods that made their most advanced code-breaking systems look like children's games. Admiral Beth Harrison materialized on the bridge of the UES Retribution as the ship's holographic camouflage systems shut down. For 15 years, the massive dreadnought had orbited Earth disguised as a deep space mining platform, its true nature hidden beneath layers of technological deception that had fooled even the most sophisticated surveillance. "Status report," she commanded, settling into the captain's chair as crew members who had posed as civilian contractors for decades took their battle stations. "All systems coming online, Admiral," reported Captain Robert Kim, his mining engineer's coveralls replaced by the black uniform of the Human Defense Force. Weapons, shields, engines, and tactical systems all showing green. "The hegemony fleets are exactly where our intelligence predicted they would be." Through the main view screen, Admiral Harrison could see the transformation happening throughout human space. Installations that had appeared to be peaceful agricultural centers were revealing massive particle beam arrays. Research stations were deploying sensor networks that could track individual ships across multiple star systems. Merchant vessels were shedding their cargo pods to expose weapon systems that dwarfed anything in the hegemony arsenal. "How long have we been preparing for this?" asked Commander Lisa Park, the ship's tactical officer. 53 years, Admiral Harrison replied. "Ever since we detected the first hegemony transmissions and realized we would eventually encounter an aggressively expansionist civilization. We hoped diplomacy would work, but we planned for the possibility that it wouldn't." The transformation was happening across 47 human systems simultaneously. Colony defense platforms that had seemed barely adequate for protecting merchant shipping revealed themselves as fortress complexes capable of withstanding planetary bombardment. Civilian transports became assault carriers, launching fighter squadrons that moved with impossible speed and agility. On New Eden, farmer Tom Bradley watched from his kitchen window as the agricultural processing center in the distance reconfigured itself. The building's walls folded away like flower petals, revealing a massive defense installation that had been hidden beneath the surface for over a decade. Similar transformations were happening at every farm, every settlement, every location the hegemony had carefully surveyed during their months of intelligence gathering. "Sarah," he called to his wife, "you might want to see this. The Peterson place is turning into a military base." The first hegemony assault fleet to discover the truth was the force targeting the colony of Haven's Rest. Fleet Commander Brock of the Brutari species led 200 ships in what should have been a simple occupation mission against a lightly defended agricultural world. His intelligence reports showed minimal defenses, a few patrol craft, basic early warning sensors, and a population of peaceful farmers. "Begin planetary bombardment of military targets," Brock ordered as his fleet emerged from hyperspace. "Avoid excessive damage to infrastructure we will need intact." The response was immediate and devastating. Haven's Rest revealed defense systems that turned the planet's entire surface into a weapons platform. Massive beam arrays emerged from what had appeared to be grain silos, launching coherent energy streams that sliced through hegemony shields like they were made of tissue paper. "Impossible," Brock whispered as his flagship's armor began to buckle under the concentrated fire. No colony world could hide weapons of this magnitude. His fleet lasted exactly 17 minutes. When the battle ended, 200 hegemony warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of superheated metal and plastic. The human colony reported 0 casualties and minimal damage to actual agricultural areas. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy, as hegemony assault forces encountered defenses that should not have existed. The aliens had prepared to fight farmers and found themselves facing a military machine that had been secretly preparing for war for half a century. War Commander Threx received the first casualty reports aboard his flagship Domination while still holding the human diplomatic team prisoner. The numbers seemed impossible, entire fleets destroyed without inflicting significant damage on their targets. Human colonies revealing military capabilities that exceeded most hegemony core worlds. "How?" he hissed at Ambassador Adams, his reptilian features twisted with confusion and growing fear. "Your species is weak, peaceful, soft? Where do these weapons come from?" Rachel looked at him with something approaching pity. "We tried to tell you, War Commander. We chose peace because we knew the alternative. You mistook our choice for inability." The bridge screens of the Domination lit up with tactical displays showing the scope of human military capability. Ships that moved faster than anything in the hegemony navy, weapons that ignored their most advanced defensive systems, and coordination between forces that suggested true artificial intelligence support rather than organic command structures. "Your intelligence was flawed from the beginning," Captain Torres added, watching Threx's growing panic with professional interest. "Every civilian installation you scanned was indeed civilian, but it was also military. Every merchant ship you cataloged was really a merchant ship, but it was also a warship. We don't separate our military and civilian infrastructure the way you do." A Mentari communications officer approached Threx with obvious reluctance. "War Commander, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human forces are not just defending their colonies, they're actively hunting our fleets. Their ships appear to know exactly where our forces are located and how to find them." The tactical display showed the truth of this statement. Human strike forces were appearing throughout hegemony space, targeting not just the invasion fleets but also the supply bases, communication relays, and command centers that supported them. The humans were fighting a coordinated campaign across hundreds of star systems simultaneously. "Signal all forces to withdraw," Threx ordered, his voice barely controlled. "Reform at Hegemony Prime for defensive operations." "Sir," the communications officer replied hesitantly, "most of our forces are no longer responding to signals. The humans appear to be using some form of electronic warfare that disrupts our command networks while leaving theirs untouched." Through the viewports of the Domination, Threx could see human ships approaching. They moved with predatory grace, their hulls bearing no resemblance to the peaceful vessels that had carried diplomats to Crossroads Station. These were warships designed by a species that understood violence at a fundamental level, weapons created by minds that had studied war as both science and art. The lead human vessel was sleek and deadly, its black hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. As it drew closer, Threx could see that its weapons were not aimed at the Domination despite being clearly capable of destroying the hegemony flagship with ease. "This is Admiral Harrison of the Human Defense Force," came a transmission from the approaching ship. "War Commander Threx, you are ordered to surrender your vessel immediately. Your crew will be treated according to the conventions of war, which apparently we will need to teach you." Threx looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, seeing his own shock and fear reflected in their expressions. The hegemony had built its power on the assumption that aggressive species would always defeat peaceful ones. That military strength was all that mattered in galactic politics. The humans had just proved that assumption catastrophically wrong. They had hidden military capabilities that exceeded the hegemony's wildest estimates while maintaining genuine peaceful intentions. They had prepared for war while hoping for peace, and when forced to fight, they fought with efficiency that spoke of terrible experience. "How long?" Threx asked Ambassador Adams, his voice barely a whisper. "How long have you been preparing to destroy us?" "We weren't preparing to destroy you," Rachel replied sadly. "We were preparing to defend ourselves if you left us no choice." "There's a difference, though I suspect your species has never learned to see it." The Domination's surrender was broadcast across the galaxy, marking the effective end of hegemony military power. In less than 96 hours, humanity had dismantled an empire that had dominated this region of space for centuries, doing so with such overwhelming force that resistance became pointless, but perhaps more importantly, they had done so while minimizing casualties among their enemies, targeting military assets while avoiding civilian populations. and offering surrender terms that were more generous than anything the hegemony had ever provided to conquered species. The galaxy was learning that humans were indeed different from other species, but not in the way anyone had expected. They were not weak pacifists who could be easily conquered, nor were they aggressive conquerors seeking to build their own empire. They were something far more dangerous, a species that combined overwhelming military capability with genuine moral restraint, making them unpredictable in ways that terrified traditional predator civilizations. The silence in the ruins of the Hegemony Command Center was broken only by the hum of human medical equipment treating wounded alien prisoners. Admiral Beth Harrison walked through the wreckage of what had once been the galaxy's most feared military installation, her boots crunching on debris that represented the collapse of a centuries-old empire. War Commander Threx sat in temporary detention, his proud bearing replaced by the hollow stare of someone whose entire worldview had been shattered in less than 4 days. The reptilian commander who had dismissed humans as softskins now found himself dependent on human mercy for his continued existence. "I don't understand," he said as Admiral Harrison approached his holding area. "Your species could have destroyed. Used completely. Why show restraint? Why offer medical aid to your enemies?" Beth settled into a chair across from the fallen commander, her expression thoughtful. "Because we learned something you never did. Threx, we learned that true strength isn't the ability to destroy your enemies. It's the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when it isn't." Through the shattered viewport they could see human ships working alongside crews from various hegemony species to restore life support and communication systems. The scene would have been impossible to imagine just days before. Former enemies working together under human supervision to repair the damage caused by a war that should never have happened. "Your species nearly destroyed itself once," Threx observed, his intelligence files finally making sense. "The third global war you mentioned during negotiations. You learned restraint from your own suffering." "We learned that there are worse things than defeat," Beth replied. "We learned that victory without wisdom is just another form of failure. When we developed the capability to destroy entire civilizations, we also developed the responsibility to use that power carefully. The transformation of galactic politics had been swift and decisive. Within a week of the hegemony's surrender, delegations from over 50 species had arrived in human space seeking audiences with the new regional power. The galaxy's political landscape had shifted overnight from one dominated by aggressive expansion to one where humans set the rules through demonstrated strength tempered by genuine restraint. Ambassador Rachel Adams found herself busier than ever, but now she was negotiating from a position of strength rather than apparent weakness. The conference rooms aboard Crossroads Station had been rebuilt, but the dynamics had changed completely. Where once the hegemony had sat in judgment over humanity, now representatives from dozens of species competed for human attention and favor. "The Centauri Republic requests permission to establish trade relations," reported Captain Torres as he brought Rachel the morning's diplomatic correspondence. "The Andromedan Collective wants to discuss mutual defense agreements. The Crystalline Assembly is offering to share their advanced mathematics in exchange for access to our medical technology." Rachel smiled as she reviewed the requests. Every species that approached humanity now did so with genuine respect, having witnessed what happened to those who mistook human peaceful intentions for weakness. The galaxy had learned that humans preferred cooperation but were prepared for any alternative. "What about the former hegemony species?" she asked. "The Saurians have requested client status under human protection," Torres replied. "They're offering to serve as a buffer zone between human space and the unexplored regions. The Brutari want to join our colonial defense forces as mercenaries. The Mentari are asking for refugee status for their civilian populations. The dissolution of the hegemony had been remarkably bloodless once their military power was broken. Most member species had joined the alliance reluctantly, held in place by fear rather than loyalty. When humans offered them genuine choice for the first time in centuries, the 12-species coalition collapsed within days. On New Eden, Farmer Tom Bradley was back to tending his crops. But now he did so under the protection of openly displayed defense systems that could vaporize attacking fleets. The agricultural processing center had returned to its civilian configuration, but everyone knew what lay hidden beneath the peaceful exterior. "Strange to think we're safer now than we were when we were trying to hide our strength," his wife, Sarah, commented as they watched their children play in fields that was secretly among the most heavily defended locations in the galaxy. "Maybe that's the point," Tom replied. "Peace through strength only works if everyone knows you have the strength to defend the peace." The lesson was being absorbed throughout human space and beyond. Humanity had demonstrated that a truly peaceful civilization was one that possessed overwhelming military capability, but chose not to use it except when absolutely necessary. Their restraint was credible precisely because their strength was undeniable. President Santos addressed the reformed Colonial Council from the same chamber where they had authorized the final peace proposal. The room was filled with representatives, not just from human colonies, but from the dozens of species that had requested to join the expanding human confederation. "We stand at a crossroads," she announced to the assembled delegates. "We can choose to build the kind of galaxy we want to live in, one based on cooperation rather than conquest, on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. But we must also remain vigilant, because there will always be those who mistake our peaceful intentions for weakness." As if to emphasize her point, a priority message arrived from deep space monitoring stations. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet approaching from the galactic rim, their energy signatures indicating another aggressive empire that had apparently not received word of the hegemony's fate. The Devourers, as they called themselves, had built their civilization on the complete consumption of other species. They viewed all other life forms as resources to be harvested, their expanding empire leaving only empty worlds and stripped systems in its wake. Their scout ships had been observing the conflict between humans and the hegemony, and they had drawn their own conclusions about human capabilities. "They think we're weakened by the recent conflict," reported Admiral Harrison as she briefed the emergency command staff. "Their communications intercepts suggest they believe we exhausted our military resources defeating the hegemony. They're planning to attack while they think we're vulnerable." President Santos studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. The Devourer fleet was enormous, larger than anything the hegemony had ever assembled. Their technology was different but appeared to be roughly equivalent to human systems. Most concerning was their apparent complete lack of interest in negotiation or coexistence. "Recommendations?" she asked her advisors. "We send the same message we sent to the hegemony," Admiral Harrison replied. "Diplomatic contact offering. Peaceful alternatives, but with the clear understanding that we are prepared for any response they choose to make." The message was transmitted to the approaching Devourer fleet using standard diplomatic protocols. It offered trade, cultural exchange, and mutual recognition of territorial boundaries. It warned of the consequences of aggressive action and provided detailed records of what had happened to the hegemony when they chose conquest over cooperation. The Devourer response was swift and unambiguous. "Weak species hide behind words when they should submit to strength. Your soft flesh will feed our young, and your worlds will become nurseries for our expansion. Prepare for consumption." President Santos read the response with weary recognition. Some species, it seemed, were incapable of learning from the experiences of others. The Devourers had observed the destruction of the hegemony and concluded that humans were tired rather than restrained, weakened rather than cautious. "Signal all commands," she ordered. "Implement Protocol 7 Phase 2. Show them what happens when a peaceful species gets annoyed." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Human fleets that had remained hidden during the hegemony conflict emerged from concealment throughout the galaxy. The force that had defeated the 12 species alliance had been only a fraction of humanity's true military capability, a demonstration of power rather than its full expression. The Devourer fleet found itself facing an armada that outnumbered them 10-1, equipped with weapons that made their own technology look primitive. The battle was over before it truly began, the aggressive aliens finding themselves outmatched. so completely that surrender became their only option for survival. But this time, humanity's response carried an additional message that resonated throughout the galaxy. The Devourers were not offered the generous terms given to the hegemony. Instead, they faced complete dismantlement of their military forces, occupation of their core worlds, and re-education programs designed to transform their civilization from consumers to contributors. War Commander Threx, now serving as a human advisor on alien psychology, watched the Devourer surrender with grim satisfaction. "You're teaching the galaxy that there are degrees of consequence," he observed. "The hegemony learned mercy because we eventually showed wisdom. The Devourers face harsher terms because they refused all opportunities for reason. The galaxy needs to understand that our peaceful nature has limits," Admiral Harrison replied. "We prefer cooperation, but we're prepared to impose it on those who threaten innocent life. The choice is always theirs to make." As news of the second great victory spread throughout known space, the human model of civilization began to take hold. Species that had spent millennia locked in cycles of conquest and submission discovered alternatives they had never imagined. Trade replaced raid, cooperation displaced competition, and the galaxy began to transform into something resembling the peaceful vision humanity had originally offered to the hegemony. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony now, openly configured as the diplomatic vessel it had always been beneath its disguise. Through the viewports, he could see representatives from hundreds of species arriving for the first Galactic Cooperation Conference, an event that would have been impossible just months before. "Strange how things work out," he mused to Ambassador Adams. "We spent 50 years preparing for war because we hoped for peace. Now we have peace because we were prepared for war." "Maybe that's the most human thing of all," Rachel replied. "We're the species that plans for the worst while hoping for the best. It makes us unpredictable in ways that terrify aggressive civilizations but attract peaceful ones." The galaxy was learning that humanity represented something entirely new in galactic politics, a species with the power to impose their will on others, but the wisdom to choose cooperation instead. They had become the guardians of peace not through conquest, but through demonstrated restraint backed by overwhelming capability. And in the depths of space, monitoring stations continued their eternal watch, ready to send the same message to any future aggressor who might mistake humanity's preference for peace as a sign of weakness. "We choose peace because we know the alternative. The choice of what happens next is yours."